3 years of university, you kind of sit in the library every single day and you feel like you're learning a lot. But in terms of actual impact on my life and for the rest of my life, this has been the most dense, amazing time for me. Formal education never gives us any education of who we are and how to deal with ourselves, because we're stuck with ourselves for our whole lives, and yet nobody gives us any advice of how to process thoughts and stuff like that. I came out to China to try and find peace in my mind, but so long as I'm searching for peace, that means by definition I am not at peace. Happiness is like a butterfly. If you sit still, it may alight on you and land on you. But if you search for it and try and grab it, it will just fly away. If you're trying to be happy, you're not happy. If you're trying to have peace in your mind, you're necessarily not at peace. And it's only by accepting who we are, including all the stuff that we don't like, including all our anxious thoughts, the negative thoughts that we have about ourselves, then this can have a qualitative difference in your life. Under heaven, all know beauty as beauty only because there is ugliness. All know good as good only because there is evil. Being and non-being produce each other. The high is born in the low, the long by the short. Therefore the sage acts with apparent duality, but paradoxical unity. He acts without effort, teaches without words, nurtures without possessing, and competes but not for results. Because he does not contend, he is beyond reproach.
Hi, Innately Whole beings. I'm Viktor Sághy. This is the Innately Whole interview series where we help you to find back to your true self. My guest today is George Thompson. George is a British YouTuber who one day packed his bag and adventured to China to pursue the solution to the pressure of the world. That's how he met with Master Gu, spent time in a Zen monastery, and became a student of the Tao. George is an enthusiast of wisdom, culture, and people in general. The things I love and admire about George are that he's such a relatable and humble person that you just immediately want to be around. He's a great connector and always brings a smile to people's face. He not just talks about Tao, he does his best to always apply it and share his honest journey with the world. When you're watching his videos on YouTube, you feel like you are with him drinking tea with Master Gu, setting up the first Christmas tree with the Tai Chi family, or just on the road exploring the culture. Today, we will talk about healing our everyday suffering and is it possible to heal ourselves? I'm very excited to discover this topic with you, George. George, welcome.
Thank you very much, Victor. It's a pleasure, as always, to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. And so you are back to Britain, right? And how does it feel to kind of complete a hero's journey?
Yeah, so 7 months ago, I came out to China and I finished university last year and kind of had this whole confusion of what I was supposed to be doing. I tried to become a full-time YouTuber, but without an audience. And so I very quickly found that, following your dreams, you have to be realistic on the sort of time frame. So I found it quite difficult and this sort of confusion in my life, and decided to just come out to China after watching some YouTube videos about monks doing some backflips and stuff like that. And I thought, hey, I've never done a martial art before, so I'm going to go out to China and try and find myself and heal my pain. And so, for the last 7 months, I've been, looking into Taoist philosophy. I stumbled across a Tai Chi school. You mentioned Master Gu, who's my master, and just been learning Tai Chi and sharing Taoist philosophy on YouTube. And then finally have, made the trip back from the chaos into the order. Although, when you first come back into the ordered world, it can feel a bit chaotic as well. But it feels good. I've learned so much in the last 7 months, 3 years of university, you kind of sit in the library every single day and you feel like you're learning a lot. But in terms of actual impact on my life and for the rest of my life, this has been the most dense, amazing time for me of just like formal education never gives us any education of who we are and how to deal with ourselves, because we're stuck with ourselves for our whole lives, and yet nobody gives us any advice of how to process thoughts and stuff like that. So it's been an amazing journey, and it feels good to be back. Sorry about the mess behind me. My parents moved house just before I left, and so all my stuff is in boxes. So I'm kind of unpacking my life as this new man. Still, yeah, I'm feeling different. I don't want to overthink it either, but it feels good to be back.
Thank you. I really like how we kind of just caught you in this hero's journey. Like it's basically like here is a circle, like you start from here and come back. But there is another important element of the hero's journey, is that the hero always comes back with the magic weapon, with or magic potion, or the wisdom, something they acquired while they were going on this journey. I'm curious, like, if there would be one thing, what would be your magic weapon or magic wisdom?
Yeah, that's a good question, because in this, I wouldn't call it myself the hero's journey, but in my journey, the villain in this story is the Underminer. This is the way that I personified it, and I'll be talking about it more on the channel. But the Underminer is the voice in our heads that brings us down. It's all these negative thoughts that we tell ourselves, we beat ourselves up about not having stuff sorted out, for not being pretty enough, or not being good enough, or whatever our negative thoughts are. And all of us have this Underminer in our heads. What the Power of Now author, I can't pronounce his name, maybe you can. Exactly. He calls it the pain body. So this part of us that just wants to create pain for us. And so that was the villain that I wasn't even aware existed before the trip started. And so, went into the underworld to try and find out, like, why have I got this pain in my life? And through reading philosophy and mindfulness books and meditation, and beginning to understand that there is this thing that is called the Underminer, or whatever you want to call it, the pain body, that is part of you but isn't the whole you. That we are much, much deeper than just our thoughts. We have this amazing, powerful subconscious intelligence that we just forget to connect with on a daily basis. Alan Watts talks about how the mind is like a radar, so it's constantly bouncing off the world, observing the world and seeing problems and then fixing them. And obviously this is a very important thing, because it's how we've managed to overcome our problems and create a civilization. We've identified things that could be improved and improve them. But if we identify ourselves only with that radar system, then obviously our life is going to just be full of problems, because you're only identifying with the thing that recognizes problems, rather than our kind of deeper self, which is consistent, the fluctuations of our kind of like thought world. There is kind of this observer, which, an important concept in mindfulness, that is always watching and is always there. So coming out of the chaos and back home, that would be the weapon, which is just the understanding that you don't need to identify with every one of your thoughts, that in fact you can kind of sit on that more consistent part of you. And much easier said than done. I'm kind of getting anxious thoughts now. I kind of had anxiety before coming out, and it's amazing how these thoughts are still coming up, and I get tension in my stomach, but I'm really much better at telling myself that that's okay. Like, it's natural for these things to come up. And life is bloody complicated, and having everything sorted out is just like that's what the radar is telling you, like, we need everything to be sorted out.
Exactly.
In reality, the world's complicated, so you don't need to have your stuff sorted out. So just taking the Underminer's thoughts with a bit of scrutiny and not identifying with them, that is a very, very powerful lesson that I've learned.
Amazing. And I think it's also important, as I'm speaking more people who are on this similar journey or the same journey is that it doesn't matter how long they've been there, or they all say that, look, like you won't stop to be a human. It's not another way to fix yourself or sort yourself.
Yeah.
It's kind of a paradox, because in a way you will have this magic weapon and you will be able to deal with the underminer much better.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do experience anxiety, anger, any of these. I mean, I'm preparing this interview. I want to make sure everything is great, and certain thoughts, emotions just come, and I can be reactive to that and just be anxious about having those thoughts, but I can let them pass. And I think it's so good to share this part of it. It's like, hey, it's all about the journey.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the irony is, I only kind of realize it in retrospect, but I came out to China to try and find peace in my mind. But so long as I'm searching for peace, that means by definition, I am not at peace. And there's many psychologists talk about this, and philosophers, and like, happiness is like a butterfly. If you sit still, it may alight on you and land on you. But if you search for it and try and grab it, it will just fly away. So it's with all these things. If you're trying to be happy, you're not happy. If you're trying to have peace in your mind, you're necessarily not at peace. And it's only by accepting who we are, including all the stuff that we don't like, including all our anxious thoughts, the negative thoughts that we have about ourselves, rather than really, like you said, getting anxious and trying to shut them down, just accepting it as a natural part of the complicated world, then that really disempowers them, but also, accepting it in itself, whether or not that disempowers them, releases so much pressure. It's such an amazing thing.
Yeah. And I know that you've been asking like a controversy, maybe even deeper question, is it possible to heal? Like is it actually possible to heal? What's your thoughts on that? Or is it just a question you are having right now?
Well, we all have inbuilt philosophies. It's the habits, the way we think about ourselves, the way we think about the world. They're not sort of conscious decisions. They're products of our upbringing and our society and, parenting, whatever, and how we see ourselves, whether or not we think we're good or bad, or like whether or not we think we can do the things that we want to do, and, whether we're clever or not clever, beautiful, not beautiful. We have these kind of judgments about ourselves and what we should be doing, which are an inbuilt philosophy. We haven't been reading, like Taoism or Buddhism or Christianity or like Islamic philosophy in order to create these things. But nonetheless, these are habits that we just don't consciously scrutinize. And so, but nonetheless, they dictate how we live our lives. And so I have found that, in fact, yes, you can heal your pain. Like you said, I mean, it's a journey of 1,000 miles, and Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoist philosophy, has the famous phrase, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So, healing yourself as the goal is just a bit unrealistic. But in terms of specific damaging thoughts, asking yourself whether or not they're true, and then providing yourself more empowering solutions. That is not too ambitious. That's not something that's like nobody can reach. You're focusing on one thing at a time. And it's remarkable how, and this is what I've been doing for the last 7 months, is really, this has made a massive difference. So, a lot of my anxiety came from the fact that I should know what I'm doing with my life. Like, I consider myself to be this strong individual, and like, I need to have everything sorted out. But then reading Taoist philosophy, you have the Yin Yang. So, this, in fact, I brought this prop for you. I brought some meditation cushions for my parents.
Cool.
So look how awesome this is.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I've been doing meditation and teaching my parents Tai Chi. So you can see that, this is the yin and the yang. So the yin rhymes with bin, so that's the black. You think of a black bin, so that's how you remember the differences. And then you've got the yang, which is the white part. And the yin yang made 3,000, 4,000 years ago by some amazing people, because it's so simple and yet holds so much power and insight into just 3 or 4 parts of a whole. So this basically depicts the fact that change is always part of nature. There's no kind of consistent, there's always a bit of yang and yin and yang, and this is like grows and changes. So in nature you see this everywhere, where you have crops growing, so you have like yang, they reach the full height, but then that also leads to the seeds being dispersed and the death of that crop. But then the following year the seeds will grow and change into new life. So it's a constant cycle. And in the same way that if we remind ourselves that change is completely natural, that in fact, because it's natural, if we feel that we haven't got our stuff sorted out right now, then we think about the yin yang and think about actually, okay, I don't need to have everything sorted out, because change is natural. We can't predict everything that happens in the world, because we don't even know how we work, let alone how others work, let alone how like societies work. So the world is far too complicated for us to fully be able to predict everything that happens. So when I have the anxious thought of, I am beating myself up about not having my stuff sorted out, then although I still have that thought rushing in afterwards, and this is an amazing thing, is that I don't even have to prompt this second thought now. It comes naturally. Even though I'm having that first anxious thought, the second thought comes in and says, actually, it's okay. Change is natural. Things are complicated, and that's okay. So can you heal your own pain? Yes. You can't become a saint and become like everything's fine and you never have pain again. But in specific instances, if you focus on your disempowering thoughts, and then one by one you build up this brick of empowering thoughts that really change the way that you see the world, then this can have a qualitative difference in your life.
So yeah, so you are saying that basically we have we have thoughts about ourselves. We have stories, concepts about ourselves. Like, I'm not good enough, or I don't have my things sorted out. And like, we can basically, it's not as much like affirmation, if I get you right. It's more about reframing. Like I'm having these thoughts. It's not like, because what I'm feeling is like with affirmation, it's sometimes we can feel we dilute ourselves, because we actually believing this thing and we say something opposite. Yeah. It's more of having the understanding that where this comes from.
Yeah.
And kind of having the understanding that that's not necessarily true, and there are other truths as well, and just looking at those truths as well, right?
Yeah.
Do I get you?
That's exactly right. Yeah, because that's the thing with the Underminer or the pain body, is that unless you kind of challenge it, you just take these thoughts for granted. I'm not good enough. I need to have my shit sorted out. Like all these thoughts. We don't question their accuracy, but in fact, that's what you do with psychology and philosophy. You look at different interpretations of the same situation and then ask yourself, actually, which one is more likely, which one's more accurate? So in that case that I just told you, just reading this philosophy, that is definitely much more accurate, that I'm not supposed to know what's going on with my life. And so, yeah, just questioning the accuracy of these thoughts is definitely the key.
And it's true. No one never ever get everything sorted in their life.
Yeah.
It's just the media and our interpretation what kind of gives this false illusion that there are actually people on the world who have everything sorted.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like with your parents, when you're growing up, you think, you go to bed and then you wake up and your parents are awake both times. They go to bed after you and go to bed, wake up before you, and they manage to like work, cook, do everything for you. And so like, as a kid, you're like, how the hell do these parents do everything? They have everything sorted out. And then you grow up and realize that, wait a sec, no, they're just human beings, and they don't have their stuff sorted out. They're doing the best job that they can, and hopefully they're doing a good job. But yeah, it takes a while to really understand that, because that's kind of a natural consequence of kind of growing up or having parents, is that you kind of idealize them. And so it does take some training, like reading philosophy or talking to people, that to realize it's okay not to have everything sorted.
Yeah. So I kind of want to go back a little bit to the beginnings. Is that why Tao?
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, this is a bit of an embarrassing answer, but I knew I wanted to come out to China, and I was considering either going to Shaolin or Wudang. These are the two main forms of Kung Fu, or the two most famous forms of Kung Fu in China. So Shaolin is more external, it's like all the crazy backflips. And then Wudang is a combination of internal cultivation. So, chi cultivation, meditation, stuff like that, but also having external as well. And Shaolin is Buddhist, whereas Wudang is Taoist. And I was like, I don't know anything about Taoism. I probably should go for Buddhism, because, like, if Taoism was actually pretty good, then I would know more about it. But I actually then just decided to pop to the Wudang Mountains just to check it out, just because I liked the idea of the internal as well, like the meditation. So I didn't actually come to the Wudang Mountains because of Taoism. I came because, like, the internal and external balance. So I was kind of always searching for that. I wasn't really looking for Kung Fu, like hard training. And in fact, that's why Tai Chi has really resonated with me, because I love the slow element of it. The peacefulness that you get from it. It's just such a beautiful thing to be able to do each morning. And I, in fact, later on in the trip, went to a Shaolin monastery doing Kung Fu. And I just found that the balance, the Yin Yang balance, was out of step. It was 6 hours of hard training each day. Whereas with Master Gu, I would do like an hour or two of Tai Chi and then be reading philosophy for the rest of the day. So that was really the balance that I wanted. So anyway, yeah, I didn't know anything about Taoism, but then the minute I started exploring it and talking to Master Gu, and the first book I read on it was The Tao of Pooh, which I'd highly recommend to anyone just looking into getting into Taoism. It's written by Christopher Hoff or something like that, and basically he argues that Winnie the Pooh is a Taoist and has many Taoist qualities of kind of being natural, relaxed, not overthinking things. And I'll butcher this retelling, but a really funny little quote from the book is that Winnie the Pooh is sitting down by the river and he's deciding who to go see that day. He said, okay, well, I saw Piglet yesterday. I haven't seen Eeyore for 2 days, and I haven't seen Owl for 3 days. And so he started to hum a song going, da 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 dee. And so, okay, I'm just going to pop home and go get some honey and eat the honey, and then I'll go decide then. So he goes home, eats the honey, and then just steps out the door and goes to Piglets. So this is such an inane story. It doesn't really have any interest, but it reflects the idea of wu wei, of natural action, or of non-action, or spontaneous action. And the idea that many of us have this kind of decision paralysis, like, who do I go to, Eeyore, Piglet, Owl, and like weighing up the pros and cons. But, Winnie the Pooh, and this is like just in Winnie the Pooh's character, it's not actually objectively Taoist. It was only in retrospect that we realized it was Taoist, is that you just don't think about it. And after Winnie the Pooh ate the honey, Piglet felt like the right choice. And that is the reflection of Taoism in general. It's very natural. It's about a connection to nature and about just not over exerting yourself, kind of trusting yourself that things will work out, and to try and understand the laws of the world, or the Tao, which is the way, the path. It's the underlying order of the universe. And so if you understand that, then you work in harmony with it, and then things become easier. So yeah, it's really resonated with me as a philosophy.
Thank you for sharing. It's really a lovely lovely story, and tells how the Wu Wei works. And I think like the modern expression for that is flow.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is actually first described by a Hungarian.
Can you pronounce his name?
whose name always pronounced bad.
Yeah.
His name is Mihály Csikszentmihalyi. Mihály Csikszentmihalyi.
I never even tried to pronounce his name.
Yes. So yeah, and flow is in sports, in art. Whenever we are so immersed in being, in being that, what we do is that the underminer, the thinking analytical mind,
yes,
kind of just either switches off or just goes with the flow as well. So I'm curious, like if we talk about flow or Wu Wei, I think sometimes there is a misconception of people using it almost like a excuse. That I don't want to do things along my schedule because then I lose my flow, or things like this.
Yeah.
I think that the answer is much deeper than that.
Yes. Yeah.
Wu Wei is kind of accessing like our subconscious or like deeper parts beneath the mind or the underminer. I'm curious, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Because the literal translation of Wu Wei is non-action. And so like, that is the kind of, a lot of people take Taoist philosophy to be kind of almost an excuse not to do difficult things, or like not to do things that are like meaningful, because, you know, like, yeah, it will break their flow and, you know, it will require effort. But this is actually kind of an antithesis to many Chinese thoughts, because if you take a Kung Fu master, or if you take, you know, like Master Gu, you know, training yourself in Kung Fu for 30 years is not something that is lazy. It's not something that doesn't require effort. So there has been a kind of a mistranslation with Wu Wei. It literally means non-action, but spontaneous action is the better translation. And that's because Wu Wei is about connecting to the powerful subconscious. And it's fascinating how the Taoists thousands of years ago kind of intuitively understood what psychology is only just kind of proving now or finding out. And so psychologists, and Flo talks about this a lot, distinguish between hot and cold cognition. So hot cognition is sort of like the body intelligence. It's our nervous system. It's quick, unconscious, and it's very efficient. You know, like you can very easily, I don't know what an example is, but yeah, using your body to do stuff is quick.
Yeah, like for example, when you are in danger, or yeah, something like that, or like exactly. You act on an impulse or a muse.
Exactly, yeah. So that's an excellent.
Or the insights.
Yes, yeah, and I mean, even with body language, it's interesting how I was talking to one of my mum's friends who does like interviews for, you know, like hiring. And she says, within a couple of minutes, I can just feel inside me whether or not this person is right. And then for the rest of the interview, what she's doing is rationally trying to understand why her body felt that way. And so, you know, there's only so much that we get an infinite amount of information into our eyes, but there's only so much that our consciousness can process. But a remarkable amount of processing is being done under the surface. And so, you know, clearly her subconscious was looking at the person's body language and seeing that something wasn't quite right, or just like the way that they talked, and, you know, they're like covering their face or something like that. And then, yeah, she had to then put the pieces together rationally. And so, yeah, so we have this hot, powerful, intelligent subconscious, and then the kind of cold rationality, which is a lot slower, deliberate, problem solving, and, you know, obviously very important, equally important. So Wu Wei is not about not doing anything. It's not about non-action in that sense, but it's about internalizing the way you do things, like specific skills, specific hobbies, even like reading people, you know, like obviously her subconscious had benefited from the years of hiring experience, and so that she could actually read people much better. So it's a constant interplay. It's not just like do nothing and your subconscious will just sort everything out for you. It does actually take effort in order to internalize, you know, how the world works. And yeah, so that's the thing. People can take Wu Wei as an excuse to kind of not do things. But yeah, using the examples of Kung Fu masters. And I'm going to do a video about it, but trying to think of when Wu Wei, like when to think about something as being Wu Wei or when something is lazy. And what I've been thinking about, I need to think about it more, is that if you're not doing something and you feel a guilt about not doing something, then that's when you really need to analyze what's going on and kind of use your cold rationality. Because if you're using the excuse of Wu Wei to not do something that's meaningful and that is important, and you feel guilty about that, like I really should be doing the thing that I've kind of had this big dream that can help people, then that's when you should really consider. But then on the other hand, our society is about constant activity and always to be busy. And I am totally aware of this in my own mind, is that I find it very hard to just be still. And that's why I found like meditation hard over the last 6 months. I enjoy it, but certainly my brain isn't still. But you know, anyway, there shouldn't be any expectation of that being the case. But nonetheless, I feel this kind of pressure to always be working. So if I feel the guilt of kind of not doing something, then perhaps it's because of socialization. And in that case, maybe, you know, relaxing, slowing down a bit will actually be helpful. But yeah, you raise a very important point. People have to be aware of that. It's not just a case of not doing anything and being completely effortless. It's this interplay, the yin yang balance of effort and non-effort, and eventually, yeah, mastering kind of the world and skills.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great point. And so the way I found you on YouTube is that one day I was sitting in front of my desk and I was asking myself the question that if you are content, if you are good with yourself, right? Will you strive for more?
Mm.
And I was thinking about like, hey, there are actually people, there are religious people who accepted themselves and they're working day in, day out to do good deeds. And who are these people? And first who popped into my mind are the Taoists. Yeah. It's like they are all about self-mastery, yeah. Mastering longevity, mastering human energy, mastering the Kung Fu, mastering poetic writing, singing, art, whatever. They looking to master everything. And if something is common, I believe, between us and the viewers is that we all striving for more. So that's kind of inside our psyche. And we also want to experience fulfillment and want to experience this kind of inner calmness and contentness, right? And sometimes the two seems contradictory. Mm. Mm. So I'm curious, like how did you see, because you were there face to face, close combat with Taoism, and I'm curious, how did you feel these interacting with each or relating to each other?
Yeah, that's such an important question, because just to compare it against Western society, you know, the whole idea of that you've got to work, you've got university, and then you start a job, and then it's all about putting happiness into the future, you know, like saving up money for your retirement, and then like life can become fun. And often people work from this kind of place of discontent with who they are, you know, like if only I had this next job raise, if only like I could be recognized for my skills, or, you know, like if only I got a first at university, or whatever this kind of if this, then that statement, you're into programming, so I know this is a concept that you're aware of. It's like conditional happiness. And so that is kind of completely reinforced in our society. But the Taoist idea of growth is that growth is natural to our being. Like we have this innate curiosity about the world. And yeah, the Chinese culture has just been for thousands of years realizing that way of kind of finding out what the world is. And so, yeah, you mentioned painting, calligraphy, poetry. These are kind of like the three combinations that the intellectuals of ancient China really, that was their way of expressing what it meant to be living. And in fact, one of my audience, he sent me this book called Existence, which is this fascinating book of just an analysis, 120-page analysis of one painting, which called Existence, which kind of reflected, how the world works. But anyway, I digress. Growth in Taoism is the idea of the way that a tree grows. So a tree, it starts off as like a little sapling, then it grows into like a kind of slightly bigger tree, and then one day it will be a mighty oak. But the sapling isn't thinking, oh, I wish I was the mighty oak. Like, why aren't I the mighty oak yet? Like trying to be, grow faster and faster. It grows in its own natural pace. And there's an amazing Taoist story about this, which is there's a set of farmers in ancient China, and they're sitting around for dinner, and then the farmer's son runs in saying, oh, sorry, I'm late. And the farmer asks, where were you? And he said, oh, I was just helping the plants grow. And the farmer was very happy. He's like, well done, son. I'm very glad that you're helping out the farm. And so they have dinner. And then the next morning, they go out onto the field and find that the sun has pulled up every single one of the plants, killing them. And the farmer's like, what have you done? You've killed all the plants. And the son said, well, I was helping them grow. I was making them grow quicker, like by pulling them up. And so this is kind of, the moral from this story is that we shouldn't be kind of unhappy with who we are, trying to pull ourselves into this future person that will be whole, because in fact that is a destructive way to grow. You need to be centered with you are as who you are, and then grow in a natural way like a tree grows. And so yes, you can be happy with who you are and be content with who you are, but that doesn't lead to inaction. It's about being content with who you are, but then growing, because growing's fun. It's like, why do we dance? Just because it's fun to dance. And, Alan Watts and Taoism and Buddhism talks about, like, actually there is no greater meaning, but why should there need to be? Like, life is about living. And so, yeah, and part of living is growing and kind of helping others. And yeah, life becomes more meaningful that way.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing is that, like, it's kind of built on the paradox. Like in Taoism, a lot of the teachings or all of the teachings are paradoxical. And what I found is like life is closer to a paradox. It's like the mind thinks in definites. The mind thinks in end goals, in future and past. And our innate nature, our deeper nature, what we basically talking about, that kind of that works a different way. That on that level, things can exist at the same time. It's the same opposite, like the Yin Yang, right? Can exist in the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure why I'm saying this. It was somehow connecting.
Let me jump in on that, because in both Buddhism and Taoism, that is the kind of the key idea of that, like, words create a world of things when in fact the world is just this continuous flow. It's patterns. It's not like you define a flower. When you think about a flower, you think about like the petals, the head and the stem. But if that's what a flower would be, it would be dead, because it needs the soil, it needs light. And so you can't really define anything as being like things, because like they necessarily rely on everything else. So like this lip balm, I don't know why I'm showing you my lip balm, but you can only say what it is relative to the space around it. And so that is the whole yin yang idea of existence and non-existence. in Western philosophy, we only ever focus on existence. We only focus on the things, and we never appreciate the lack of things. Chapter 1 of the Tao Te Ching is the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The Tao is both named and nameless. Named, it is the mother of myriad things. Nameless, it is the origin of all. Ever desireless, one can see the mystery itself. With desires, one can only see its manifestations. And to see the mystery is the doorway to all understanding. So this chapter shows us that if you try and use words to say what the Tao is, you're necessarily failing, because words are a product of the myriad things, the 10,000 things in the world. These are objects that are useful for describing the world, but they're actually not the world itself. And so, yeah, it's an incredibly important concept to kind of remember that the world is transitory. You know, things change, and what we think are things, like ourselves being this kind of, I know you talk a lot about this, Viktor, of being this isolated, you know, thinking radar machine stuck in this body, when in fact, you know, talking about the flower analogy is actually we can't distinguish ourselves, we can't define ourselves without including everything around us. And so, you know, your channel, Innately Whole, we are everything. But yeah, words belie that fact, that they make it harder to perceive that.
Yeah. And I heard a very good and actually very new at the time explanation of the Yin Yang. I mean, it's quite well known, and in the common knowledge, we think that the Yin Yang is about duality. So it's about the dual nature of the word.
Yeah.
Yes, and so what the guy said is that the Yin Yang symbol actually symbolizes much more than that. It symbolizes the illusory duality of the word. So the word seems like good and bad, far and close, you and me, this and that, up and down. It seems like everything is separate, like I'm separate from the background, while in reality it's also true. It's not like this is not true, as you were saying. It's also true that I'm and the background is one, because we kind of existing in the same word, our resonance kind of connecting, interchanging each other. And it kind of explains, like, the whole thing is one circle. Is really one thing, and the yin is in the yang, and the yang is in the yin, and the whole thing is in constant movement. So like the two fishes, or the two like teardrops, are kind of showing a movement. So it's just beautiful, as you said. Like, I imagine you could write a book and I'm sure there is a book just about the symbol, how huge depth it has. So
undoubtedly, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm enjoying picking this up. So it's such a powerful, so simple, but yeah, so powerful. And yeah, the surface reading is that, you know, the world is made of dualism, opposing forces. But really, yeah, it's talking about a non-dualistic world. And chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching, under heaven, all know beauty as beauty only because there is ugliness. All know good as good only because there is evil. Being and non-being produce each other. The high is born in the low, the long by the short. Therefore, the sage acts with apparent duality, but paradoxical unity. He acts without effort, teaches without words, nurtures without possessing, and competes but not for results. Because he does not contend, he is beyond reproach. So that chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching really illustrates, without saying the yin yang specifically, is like, we only know things to be good only because there is evil. They necessarily rely on these two pairs. But in fact, because of that dualistic nature, they don't exist as objective things in the world, because they wouldn't exist without each other. They're a relative concept. And so, yes, that is exactly right. The yin yang demonstrates the fact that there are these dualistic forces always in constant flux, but in fact, beyond that, it's the underlying oneness of the world.
I love that. I love your teaching, and that you recite things. It kind of shows me your dedication of learning.
Yeah. I've loved it because, yeah, I mean, I love learning. And what I've been doing with the Tao Te Ching is creating a mind palace. So Master Gu's house has all these chapters of the Tao Te Ching. And so I've got like hilarious images. I don't know how much the audience knows about mind palaces, but basically words, you know, they've only been with us for 100,000 years or something like that. Before then, we worked with images. And so to illustrate this, if you were to go to a friend's house once and then never go again, I'm pretty sure that you would be able to recall the exact layout of that house. And that's because we are very, very good at spatial awareness. We just have like a very good memory for that. And that's because when we were hunters and gatherers, we had to remember, you know, the layout of the land so that we could get home after a hunt. And secondly, we had to recognize images well, so that, you know, if there was a poisonous plant, we would remember the characteristics of that plant, or, you know, like certain trees that can help us, whatever. And so our brains are hardwired to remember images much better than words, which are abstractions and human conscious created things. And so what the Mind Palace does is that it asks you to convert words and ideas into images. And so in Master Gu's place, I've got images like Mr. Bean sword fighting with a lion, and trying to, at the same time, cupping his hands with some water. And that chapter's about not overfilling, not having too much, and, you know, fill yourself with pride and nothing can save you from a fall. So that's where the lion comes in, you know, like the pride of lions. Yeah, so I've really enjoyed that, because it means that I can then I have the Tao Te Ching kind of like just in Master Gu's house. So I think about Master Gu's house and then can recall all these chapters. So yeah, I've just absolutely loved the learning process, as well as the philosophical process.
So this mental palace is basically imagery, visual construct in your head.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So you close your eyes and you visualize yourself going, in this case, to Master Gu's house, and go around and see these images on the wall, which reminds you to the essential teachings of the Tao.
Exactly, yeah. So each chapter of the Tao Te Ching has its own images, so that I create images so that I can remember that chapter in particular.
Yeah. Great. So, and you practiced it and you see this picture, and then, you know, it's just easier to recall the whole chapter.
Yeah, exactly. Because our minds work with images, it's much easier to memorize than just, you know, rote memorization.
Cool. It makes sense. Now, we're kind of closing to the end, and I'm curious, like, is there anything that you would like to talk about, anything that you think is important in this interview?
Yeah, well, because I know that you know, an important focus for you is the kind of the unity of, you know, like, yeah, we're talking about dualism a lot. So maybe just getting your opinion on it, because we've heard like a Taoist perspective, but maybe just how have you related Innately Whole and your kind of vision to what I've been talking about?
To me, it's really the same thing. So what fascinates me is that, similar to the woman who you were talking about in the interview, when I'm just meeting with someone, I have a feeling of like, he or she got this, and then I'm kind of watching more videos and justifying consciously why, or like looking for it. But And when I'm talking with people like you more and more, and I'm going through my own problems, right?
Yeah.
When I'm living life and going deeper into this, I'm just seeing more and more that we are talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So regards to like non-duality, recently I'm going more into like practical and only talk about like the deeper understanding once someone is there. Because I just found if I start to talk about all the deep stuff, sometimes people who try to get into it don't understand it. Now, I think there is a more important concept than talking about non-duality. And it's just as simple as don't believe your thoughts necessarily. You have a thought, don't identify with that necessarily. Look at it for what it is, and then see that reality is so much more. And non-duality is really that our thinking is dual. It's good, bad, me, you, this and that, past, future. I will be happy when, and that's always like one segment of reality, either the good segment or the bad segment. But reality is whole. Like there is actually a deeper, like you were talking about having a thought and discovering new realities, new options, like what if I'm actually fine, right? and 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 this is what's important, is that the world is much bigger. It's seemingly dual. Seemingly everything is good and bad. Seemingly you sitting there and I'm sitting here. There is like a deeper reality of that we part of this Gaia, we part of this planet, this universe. And it's like similar, the cells in our body, we are like cells and creating one big organism, right? So that's how I see it. And I think that it's just pointing to the same truth pointing to the same truth with different fingers.
Definitely. There's a really interesting guy called Joseph Kaufman, and he actually came to Master Goo's place from the channel, and he's this American guy. He's only 21, so, amazing guy. And what he's been doing is going around the world and interviewing spiritual masters. So he's talked to the Native Americans. He's talked to, the Peruvian shamans. Sorry, I forgot the word. Yeah, shamans. Then went to India, talked to the yogis, and then like Taoism and Master Gu. And exactly what you're saying. He's saying that like it's unbelievable, but like the connection with the whole, the kind of conscious collective, is how Joseph Kaufman talks it, is a consistent theme on every continent of the world. And that just seems, it could be a coincidence, but it just feels like the fact that cultures that there's no way that information could have traveled between them have reached the same conclusions about actually our relationship with the world and with other human beings. That just kind of, for me, is testament to the fact that all these teachings, they're speaking to the same thing. And, I have a scientific mind, but I can totally, just talking about the scientific definition of a flower, like you can't define it without the rest of the world. Like you don't have to be kind of an airy fairy person to kind of intuitively understand this. And yeah, I think it's so powerful that, the stuff that you're doing and the stuff that Joseph Kaufman are doing.
Great, thank you. And so what I'm curious about is that if you could choose one thing, what would you love to see in the world?
What would I love to see in the world? Yeah, I mean,
I know.
just everyone just like take a breath. World Breath Day, okay? It's just come out of my mind then. World Breath Day. Everyone just like, just chill out a bit, okay? Like everything's all right, you know, just like all this stuff that all the problems of the world we have created. So let's just like, actually we're all human beings. We're all okay. You know, like, yes, there are problems in the world. Yes, the world is kind of difficult. It's complicated, but like, if you trust yourself, you know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you'll be okay. So World Breath Day, I'd like to see that. Reconnecting with you know, just getting out the mind for a second and everyone just.
And this is what we were doing before the interview.
Yes, exactly.
And it's so important to just take a few deep breaths.
And it connected us as well. You know, like you get onto the same level. You know, you just both breathe and you reset. And I mean, it's such a powerful thing.
Yeah, because our mind is here, and it's like literally we can feel the power is there. And when we breathe, the power comes to our body, and it's just we're more living in that unity reality and in the present moment. Cool. So you completed one hero's journey.
Yeah.
And it's fine if you cannot answer this, or if you don't see, but let's just say we make up. How would your next hero's journey look like?
So on the YouTube channel, I've just built this amazing relationship with the audience that I'm extremely grateful for. And in the last few weeks, I've been really trying to think about the future of the channel, and you know, my future is very much intertwined with that, and asked for everyone's feedback. And certainly the consistent theme for everyone was like, okay, you've had this amazing time on the mountain and, you know, like learned so much, but hey, we're stuck in the real world with kids and jobs. So like, does this stuff apply? Like, can this work for us too? And so that's the next journey of entering into the chaos of the working world and trying to find my feet in it. And, you know, it's going to be quite a contrast of very chilled out in the mountain. And then I'm going into like, you know, a graduate 55-hour week, high pressure job. And, you know, I'm looking forward to that because I'll be learning a lot. But yeah, that's the next stage of kind of, can we keep these ideas and trust in ourselves? And yeah, despite the pressures of the real world. So yeah, that's going to be an important new arc, you know, the second journey to come.
I absolutely bow to you for like taking on this mission, to living this mission, and really sharing and giving it to others. So it's not just about you. It's like, hey, we are in this together, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, because, you know, like, yeah, I really try not to claim to be any spiritual master or be anything. Well, I mean, like, even I wouldn't be able to, even if I wanted to. But the point is that like a lot of these ideas, they're kind of esoteric. You know, that people are actually happy about using. Like, oh yeah, I'm like into esoteric stuff. Like, difficult to understand is the definition of that. And I just feel that is really taking away from the essence of these teachings, which is like, we're all human, we're all in this together. And I want to be real with people, you know, like I am going to find things difficult. You know, I talked about my anxiety, and, you know, I'm still like coming back here despite, you know, going on the hero's journey. You know, I'm still getting anxious thoughts, and, you know, that's okay. And yeah, just having a bit of realism. And, you know, I appreciate that you appreciate that, because that's something that's really important to me.
Yeah, it's really important to kind of not feed the media monster of gurus where we feel that the gap is just growing between us and where we should be. But I think the strength of you, the mission you do, and your YouTube channel is that people can really connect to you, and they're really you really bring them on a journey, because then they really feel like, oh, this is a real guy, and he does this, and he encounters this, and fails, and does mistakes and things like this. So I know that I do mistakes as well, like maybe it's possible to me too. And that's a huge message which is so rare today's society. And I think this is what the world really needs. So that's another reason why I was super excited about this interview to talk about these things. So you talk about what are the next things for you, or what is your vision, and so I'm curious, like is there any other projects or any areas where people can engage with you, or they should be aware of?
Sure. So I'm going to keep the YouTube channel going, weekly videos. I've got some plans to kind of bring, the audience into the real world, and I'll talk about it here. I DJ a bit. So growing up in Bristol in the United Kingdom, we have amazing music here, and I used to DJ drum and bass, and then like house and techno at university. And so I want to create this space where YouTube videos, like in the day we have these big ideas, and then at night we have this space that people can just express themselves, be wu-wei, and kind of like, if you picture the scene from The Matrix, in the second Matrix, when they get down, maybe it's the first one, when they get into the underworld city, and then they have this big like tribal dance party, and everyone's going crazy. Like that's what I imagine. This nightclub being like, everyone just like grooving, and it's just like you really feel the love. So that's one idea that I've got. But yeah, I'm going to be very busy with the job, but I also have a Patreon as well that people can connect with me. So that is, I'll be sharing like extra stuff beyond the channel, so like articles that go into researching my videos, and then I've got like a monthly Google Hangout for like talking about anxiety and China. If people are interested in that, there's quite a few of us now that just talk about those sort of things. So yeah, but I think that's enough on my plate for now.
Cool. I know that you also endorsing Master Gu's meditation on Udemy, so people can go to that.
Yeah, so we've got two courses. Master Gu, amazing teacher, it's like really been amazing for my Tai Chi journey, and speaks English. So yeah, we've got two courses on Udemy, one Taoist meditation and the second a Tai Chi course. And you really get to learn from the mouth of a Taoist master from China. So yeah, we've already had some amazing feedback, and yeah, I'd really recommend that if people are interested in Tai Chi and how Taoists meditate, because it's quite different from Buddhist meditation. It's much more about connecting with the abundant energy of the world, the Qi energy, and just kind of having some time to be quiet and connecting with that. So it's not about counting the breaths or really concentration. It's about kind of visualizations of beautiful things and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd recommend both those things.
Great. And I also know that you are not just on YouTube and Patreon, but you are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even Reddit. Yes,
yeah. GeorgeThompson.uk is my Facebook and Instagram, and got loads of amazing photos. I mean, I've had a drone. I bought a drone a few months ago, and Master Gu called it Feihu, which is Chinese for flying tiger. And I'm pretty sure they put magic beans into it, because like it takes unbelievable photos, and it can come home on its own if it gets lost. It's just like ridiculous technology. I don't know how they do it, but yeah, just been getting these breathtaking photos, and I'm very, I have no embarrassment saying how amazing they are, because I don't take claim for them. It's just like, this drone is so amazing. But of the Wudang mountains and all these beautiful temples. So yeah, catch me on Facebook and Instagram to check those out.
Awesomeness. Thank you, George. I really loved our interview. all the depth and talking about Taoism and or what connects us as human beings, what are pains and what are mechanisms, and how to deal with them. So I just want to say a big thank you for you, and a big thank you for the audience being here with us.
Yeah. I appreciate you, Viktor. The audience may not know, but Viktor kind of watched the channel, reached out to me, and we've kind of been talking quite a few times. And I really appreciate. He's a very good listener. He's just very open, and I really like your heart and the direction that you're taking things. So I appreciate your time, and you're making this happening.
Great, thank you.
All the best.
All the best.